So today we are going to be recreating this beautiful product image step by step. So let's get started straight away. I am going to start off by deleting all of this, and then I will bring in a reference image, which I got before. You can get it on Patreon for free. So now the image is in our field, but it is being projected exactly from our viewport direction. So I'm going to click on Alt-R in order to undo the rotation, RX90 in order to get it up straight, GZ, hold Control, and let's bring this upwards until it is somewhat on the ground plane if I press on 1. Now, of course, there's a bit of perspective in this image as we always encounter, but we are going to tackle that by simply doing it by hand. So what I'm going to do is G and Z, bring this down. I will bring in a mesh, you already guessed it, a mesh circle. You're getting so smart following this channel, you know so much. G and Z, we're going to bring this up, I'm going to scale this down, and now we have one line that we should follow, and I'm going to follow this line. So I'm going to follow the left side of this image. Now, bring it down, very simple. There is a slight slope right here, so we're going to add that. I'm going into edit mode, press 1 so we can see all the vertices, and I'm going to press E and bring it up in the first direction. So press on Z and let's bring it over here. E and Z, let's bring it over there. And once again, we have this sloping inwards type of effect. So I'm going E and Z, scale it down, simply follow the reference. It's not that hard. E and Z and scale it inwards, maybe somewhere over here. And now I'm going to press E and S, make sure that we have one little area right here that's a bit more flat. And as a matter of fact, I'm even going to select all of this, SZ0, and now we're absolutely certain that it's flat. I'm going to select the inner line, and we're simply going to bring this upwards. And I believe this is inside of the bottle cap, so I'm simply going to bring this up, and I will fill this up. Are we going to show this to the viewer? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe we can simply ENS, ENS, ENS. E and S, E and S, E and S, and F. Make sure the squares are approximately the same size. Click on O in order to enable proportional editing, G and Z, and we're going to bring it down ever so slightly to get this type of effect that you always get on these type of bottles, you know what I'm saying? So I'm going to select this line right now, and before we actually do something, I'm going to press on Control A and apply the scale. So now we've got this line, I'm going to press Control B, maybe add a little bit more of these, so a couple, and keep it small. I'm going to add a subdivision, but before we do that, let's make the bottom first. So I'm going to select this, press on 1, and let's go over here. It has this standard type of slope, so E and Z. This really isn't that hard. Let's disable proportional editing, E and Z, and scale it inwards. So now we have this type of effect going on. And I will press E and S because I feel like there might be a slight indentation in here. I'm not sure, I don't have the bottle. I'm just going to interpret it. So E and S. Whoa, what's going on, people? I'm going to bring this upwards simply so we know what this area was. And then I'm going to be pressing E and S. You might be wondering, why are you modeling through this entire plane and didn't just bring it backwards a little bit? I could have done that. I definitely should have done that. But now I'm going to continue with my stupidity. So E and S, E and S. It's a sign of bravery to continue being stupid, you know. E and S, E and S, especially if it's in public. E and S, E and S, E and S, E and S, and F. Press on O to enable proportional editing, G and C, and let's bring this upwards. Make sure that we're not moving that line right here that we specified before. Let's bring it up. If we do it too much, you can see it is moving. So something like this should probably be pretty cool, maybe a little bit less. I'm going to select this entire line, SZ, proportional editing turned off, SZ0, and now we're absolutely certain that it's straight. We need the bottle cap. So we're going to make that as well. Why not? And the way we're going to do it is pretty simple. I'm actually just going to select this line right here. I'm going to press Shift D, P, separate the selection, and now it should be a separate selection right there. I'm going to scale it upwards. I'm going to Object, Set Origin to Geometry, and let's scale that up a little bit. Press on 1 so we can actually see what we're doing. right over there seems totally fine. Let's go into edit mode. Press E1, what's going on, people? I'm going to press on E and Z. Let's bring it upwards, and I'm not going to bring in those indentations at first. I'm going to do all of those at the same time. So let's bring this bottle cap all the way over there until it looks like this. Slight eye interpretation right there, but no problem. E and S, 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 E and S. You could also grid fill this if you'd like. I like E and S-ing. It's also pretty fun to say out loud. O, proportional editing, G and Z. Let's bring that down just a little bit, like so. And now let's press on Alt-C in order to see through it. And now we need to create some loop cuts. So let's select this. And well, we can either do a lot of it, which is fine. So I'm going to select this. And of course we have a lot of mesh right now. You can do it in any other type of fashion that you like. I'm simply going to do it like this. I will select 3 of those. And I will do the same right over here. And I will do the same right over here. Now, if I'm correct, there's 2 lines in between all of these, which means that they are evenly spaced. And now I'm going to press on I. Before we do that, let's apply the scale, Control A. I'm going to press on I. And let's have a look. Let's see how deep it goes. This rabbit hole. E. Somewhere over here should be fine. And I believe if we now press Control minus, we only have the middle one left. I'm going to press Alt E, extrude the faces along normals and bring it inwards just a little bit. Now, if we add a subdivision surface modifier, it should probably look exactly like the reference image. And I was correct, because I've been doing Blender for such a long time. I know these things by heart. Let's add a subdivision surface modifier to this one as well. And that looks pretty good. Let's add a shade smooth. Let's do that for this one. All right, so now our bottle is finished. So we should probably give it a texture. So G and Y. Let's bring this backwards. And where's the reference? Oh, there it is. Cool. This looks like a gradient. This looks like glass. This looks like, I don't know, some glass type of metallic maybe. It seems metallic-ish. So now let's do the textures. First I'm going into DaVinci Resolve in order to get this text and this logo, whatever it is. And that shouldn't be too hard. Let's do it right now. I'm going to show you exactly how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to add a text plus node. Text plus right in here. I already know that it's going to be a serif font and not a sans serif font. It has these little squiggly things on the letters. Let's see, Sauvage. So this is sans serif. We actually want with some serif, like this. But there's probably a better one. Let's have a look at the internet. Oh, it's a custom font created for the Sauvage brand. But we're just going to take something that looks like it. Maybe something like this. Increase the tracking. Sauvage. Very easy stuff. Let's add a background. Now the background is on top. We don't want that. The background should be on the bottom. So let's switch these over. Background, transparent. I'm also going to make it a square. So let's turn this into a 1080 part. Auto resolution turned off. Auto 1080. And now we have the Sauvage. I'm going to place it upwards. And we also need some Dior. So let's add some more text. And I don't know what this looks like. All I know is that the first letter was capitalized. Cool. So let's save this image. And things are moving along nicely. So let's bring in our image. Image, mesh plane, Sauvage. RZ90. Let's go into cycles view. Let's turn it into cycles. Let's turn it into GPU. Let's turn on the denoise. Let's go into the lighting, because we need some light in order to see what we're doing. And increase this. Whoopa. Like so. Where is it? There it is. And we've got some text. It's inverted SX-1, and now it's not inverted anymore. Let's scale this up, and I feel like this should be a bit bigger. Should be a bit more down. Ah, that's actually pretty close. However, this should be separated from the other part. So separate this selection. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And now that is near perfect. So let's give this a shrink wrap. Shrink wrap modifier, but it will not work because we don't have geometry. So let's add some geometry by adding some loop cuts. Let's select the Dior one, more loop cuts, and let's select the nearest surface as a target. And now it has disappeared. So let's bring it outwards with the offset just a little bit. I'm going to do the same with this one. Shrink wrap, target, offset. Awesome. So now we have this, very cool. Let's go over to this material. Let's add a HDRI real quickly. So I'm going into Lumio, HDRI browser. And now I'm going to select an HDRI. I don't know which one. Let's give it a try. So right now we are going to do the material for this object, and I've already brought in an HDRI called Quattro Quanti 2K, and you can get it on HDRI Hyphen. Now I'm going to make a new material for this bottle, and I'm going right over here and I will add a gradient texture, Control T. Let's keep it in generated because it works better for gradient texture for some reason. Color ramp, and let's set the rotation on the Y to 90 because then it's starting from the top and the bottom. Very good. What we want to do is make sure that we get this type of gradient effect, and if we add another color with a plus, you can already see how we can create this type of look. We should probably make sure that it's also a bit more varied using a color, using a noise texture. So let's bring in a noise texture. Select both of these, Control 0, and perhaps we can set it to multiply, and then everything black will be black. I don't know if that made any sense, but as you can see, when we play around with this slider, we can change the way the overall look of this goes. So I'm going to decrease the scale because I don't want it to be that extreme. I'm going to decrease the detail and decrease the roughness. Let's play around with the linearity and the distortion just a little bit. But I actually don't want it to occur all the way over there. And the way that I'm going to fix that is by using the color dodge. And using the color dodge, we also have the whites here protected, but we still have some control over this black area. You can already see how you can make like a fire transition if you use this effect with a bit more skill, of course, and then you get some cool fire type transition. But that's not the goal of this video. We're simply going to make something very cool. So let's go over here and let's go over there. Let's make this a bit more dark because it should be dark. So let's park this right here for a second because I want to make this inner area as well. And it seems to be, I don't know, a bit more circular, brought down. It's kind of like it's the opposite of what we've got underneath here, but then it's going on inside. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this one and this one. I'm going to press Shift D, P, separate the selection. Let's select it. Now I'm going into edit mode. Select all, Alt S to scale the normals and bring it inwards. Now we've got that done just a little bit more, so it seems. Going to press on 1, let's look through this, and it should be moving upwards just a little bit. So let's select all of this, bring it upwards, then select this outer loop, E and Z, let's scale it down, E and Z, let's scale it down. And I'm just going to fill it with F in this particular case. Then right here, I'm going to fill it with F, and we have a subdivision on this, which gives it this weird looking shape. So I'm going to press I once more and make sure that it's a bit more rounded off like that, but not too rounded off. Auto shade smooth on both of these logos. Cool, so we fixed that real quickly, and the interior should probably just be glass. So I'm going to give this its own material, click on plus, let's go into edit mode, select all, let's assign, let's remove the principled BSDF and bring in a glass BSDF, set to 1.5 IOR, BSDF in the surface, and yeah, let's go back into our material and actually finish this up. This should go into the principled BSDF. The principled BSDF should have a transmission because now we actually do have glass, and as it occurs to me, The black area is not glass. The white area is the glassy part. Let's decrease the roughness so we can be sure. So a bit more like 0.2 or something. But the glass is not that realistic because we should add a solidify modifier. So let's add a modifier, solidify. Let's bring it in there. And the thickness doesn't have to be that thick, but it also shouldn't be that thin. Now that seems a bit more like accurate glass as opposed to what we had before. I don't think this one looks pretty good though, so let's add another loop cut right there to make it a bit more sharp. So the black area doesn't have any light, so we should flip this around, flip the entire script, and I'm going to give this color. So it should be dark and it should be blue, and it should be dark blue. And then right over here for the middle one, it should be blue, but it shouldn't be as dark as our previous blue. We want to emulate this effect right there. Let's see how we can do it. It's a very simple game of playing around with sliders. Something like this, but I feel like it's a bit more, yeah, indigo, right? Like indigo. And then let's increase the white as well. And let's make a new one. And let's also make this some type of blue. All right, so that kind of looks like the Sauvage bottle. I think we did a great job there actually. Not a great fan of this text. I am going to stretch it out a bit more, SXX. That seems a bit better. Same goes for this one. Not entirely sure about the glass area that we see right there. I think that we can change a couple of things to make it look better because it's a bit too washed out or something. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a glass BSDF, and I will take this color ramp, Ctrl-Shift-D, and the only area that really matters is the white one. I'm going to delete this one, minus, I'm going to delete that one, and this one should be black. I'm going to add a mix shader node, Ctrl-0, color in the factor, and it seems to me like it should be inverted. Invert the color, and now this part is the glass from the glass shader, while the other part is the glass from the principled BSDF. And of course we can play around with this in order to manipulate the style a bit, but I think that's too much. Also, maybe the roughness here should be going down a little bit. Play around with the color ramps until we get to a desired result. Let's also take this area, Shift D, P, separate the selection. Let's select this, let's bring it inwards. Let's remove the material from this and give it a new material and make it glass. Oh, I'm fucking it up. Glass, BSDF, in the surface. Let's go into edit mode. Alt C, let's select the entire edge. Alt S, G and Z, E and S, G and Z. Let's just make a shape that makes it look a bit more glassy like so. Gives it a bit more detail, looks a bit better. I think it's cool, just going to keep it. And now it looks like this, pretty cool looking. Let's give it a white background real quick just to see if everything is still moving along in the right direction. Either way, let's do the bottle cap and let's make it a black metallic. So let's make it black, let's make it metallic. Let's set the metallic to 0.7. Well, the only thing that's bothering me is the interior of this. So let's add a solidify to it as well. Let's bring it inside. Ah, there you go. That's more of the effect that I'm looking for. But now we can use this for something else. So let's go over here. Let's select this entire thing. Shift S, cursor to selected. Let's add a empty. So let's select all of this. Empty last. Control P, object keep transform. And now everything should be parented to the empty. So now let's actually bring this bottle into a cool looking environment. And oh, it's actually dark blue. Oh wow, we should make this dark blue, guys. Just a bit more like this. Metallic all the way up. Let's make it a dark blue. So let's create the rest of this part. Now we see some area with a waterfall. This is going to be a tough one, but we can see that the contrast is created by using a light background, using a dark bottle on the foreground, so we actually get some contrast. And we're going to sculpt some rocks and make sure that they have a nice and wet looking material. Let's turn the HDRI off and actually make it transparent. And now we can start working on the actual project. So let's add a cube. I'm going to bring it down, to bring it right here, and make sure that our glass is standing on it. And then I will add a very quick plane on the background, RX90, G and Y, and there's actually two methods to solve this. We can either place an image behind this, or we can try and make it with a noise texture. And you know what, it's quite fun. Let's try to do that first. Let's plug a noise texture into the emission. Control T, color ramp. Let's have a look at this. Well, it should probably be very close by to each other. We have a lot of white, almost no black. Something like this, and the black can probably be white-ish. Something like that. We have those curling corners, so what we can do is add a gradient texture. Control T, let's have it be in a color ramp, factor, color ramp. Right now we have this, and that's great. Let's add a noise texture. Let's add a mix color node. Let's set the mix color to color dodge. Let's increase the scale. And let's play around with the color ramp in order to get that type of effect. Something like this should probably do the trick. And then we will add those two together. Control 0. Let's have a look at this. Mix, multiply, that's great. RY 180 and do it like this. So let's plug that into the emission. Could use some color. So let's make it a bluish tone together with well, blue like this. And let's also plug this in the alpha. Yeah, that makes a bit more sense. Let's add a background and let's make it a bit more rocky. But for now, let's first make it rough. Alright, so now at least we have some reference to work with. So let's sculpt some rocks. I'm going to use E to extrude this all the way over here. And then I will select this area and extrude it upwards all the way over there. I will click on one, Control-Alt-0 in order to place a camera. And I'm already going to place the camera so that the sauvage is exactly in the middle. So let's go over to the camera, view per display, composition guides, center, and make sure that it is exactly centered, like right there. We're going to shoot it a little bit from below. So let's make sure the camera is pointed upwards. G and ZZ, let's increase the focal length, maybe to something like 100. Bring it backwards just a little bit, G and Z. Select all of this, subdivide it a couple of times, like this. Then I will Control A, apply the scale, go into sculpting. And right now we can basically just change the shape of this. I will first make the general shape. Either way, let's first make sure that we get some rocky type shapes in this, and that the general shape is to our liking. And then we're going to add a lot of detail. Okay, so this is basically it. I'm going to turn the Dyne Topo on, and I will set the Dyne Topo to 3, which means that it will add quite a bit of geometry. So I'm now going to draw on this and give it some actual details. Let's bring it in here, and well, I'm going to use the Draw Sharp actually, because I think for rocks it looks a little bit better. Yes, and what I'm also going to use is the clay strips, but I'll get to that. Just make sure that there's enough variation going on. Clay strips, those look best for rocky types of surfaces, I find. You can also get a brush that looks like rock. I just like doing it like this, a bit more with a circular motion in order to distract the viewer that it's not actually straight, that we're not doing our mechanical hand movements. We are artists. You want to make sure that some of these parts are fairly thick and thin, so there's a lot of separation here. Otherwise you will not really see it. So if it's too subtle, you won't really see it. So make sure that it's quite extreme and pronounced if you do it. So something like this, for example, probably will be able to cast a shadow. And this is just an artistic process. I'm probably going to make a time lapse out of this so you can see what I'm doing, but basically Just draw on the rocks, man. Just draw on the rocks. All right, just a little tip in between. I'm also going to use the crease brush, the crease sharp to be exact, because using this you can make some pretty rough type of destruction in the rocks, like this. All right, so now that we've got our pretty cool looking rock, we can texture all of these materials and make sure that we actually get a pretty cool looking render. So let's go over into object mode in the layout tab. Let's click on 0 and we should give this a cool texture. So let's click on new. And usually what I would do is simply go into the asset browser, find my stone texture, which I probably have right over here, this one, drag it on there, and then I would go to the shader editor and change the color of this to be a bit more dark using the hue, saturation and value, decreasing the value, make it dark, and decrease the roughness in order to make it wet. But instead of creating a whole new rock material, I'm simply going to show you how I created this one so you can copy the settings if you like. I also have a tutorial on this. It's pretty old, it's like 2 years old or something, but there I explain step by step how I created this. Either way, there's a texture coordinate with an object in the mapping. The mapping is going into 2 noise textures, but you can simply check it out. So this is the noise color. Then when I zoom out, we have the bump pattern. So this is creating the bump. These are the different settings. Then we have the multiply of this one, which makes sure that the noise texture is combined in this multiply. And then we combined what we created with the bump in this color ramp with this multiply. Okay, so this multiply is going into here. This entire bottom section is going into this multiply. And this part is the normal. So this entire area is the bottom normal. Then this normal is from this upper noise texture right here. Then this final bump is from this noise texture right here. And this was originally moss, so it's actually green, and you get a moss type of effect right here, as you can see. So if I had to break that down, this is the first noise texture pattern. It's some smaller dots right here on some grayish tones. So we have the grayish tones, the smaller dots combined together. Then we have this area right here, which looks like the actual rock material. It's pretty rough. It has some edges and stuff like that. Color ramp didn't do anything actually, didn't play around with it. Combined both of those together, so this one and this one combined together makes this one. And then we have some normal maps, so the normal map on that one, normal map on this one. All of them are like 0.7 except for the final one, which is 1. And then we have a noise texture which looks like this. It has detail and roughness all the way up and some scale, nothing going on here. And that determines where the moss will be, as you can see. Okay, and then we have a hue, saturation and value, which makes this dark, which is what I did for this one. Roughness all the way down because it should be reflective. So that's it for that material. Now for the material on the back. Let's go over here. I changed some things. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about it. So we have this outer area. And the details should probably go up. Roughness. Just a little bit. Or something like that. Maybe some distortion as well. But not too much. Really not too much. Something like this should probably do the trick. So we have a noise texture, 1.1 scale, 10 on the detail, distortion to 5, and this is both pretty much white, and I played around with this, and this one is a little bit wider than this one. It's not that much of a difference, but it does make a difference. So we play around with this and make sure that we actually have a pretty cool pattern right over there. Something like this, and we can also play around with the scale, stuff like that. We have a scale on the X of 2.55 and on the Y of 0.15. And here we have a multiply bringing all of this together because we had the gradient and we had this noise texture and we brought it together, removing this area, plugging it into the alpha, which means that it is removed, and then we add a color to it. I added 3 colors so I can decide a bit more how it will look in the end. Take this same rock. I will take this and bring it a bit more back towards this area. We can even add some loop cuts. Proportional editing with O. Let's drag it out and make it a weirder type of shape. Then let's duplicate the material and make it darker. So strength down. Something like this. Maybe some more. Even beneath that one. And we can also scale it, perhaps maybe a bit wider, give it some variation, shade it smooth. Let's go into the camera. Camera, viewport display, passepartout. And now it looks like this. Pretty close to the reference if you ask me, but we need to do some lighting work in order to get this done. So let's first add a fill light right over here. So RX 90, and now that is looking towards the glass, and that is fine. Let's increase the power, and now we can actually see some of that detail here. Shouldn't be too strong though. Perhaps we can also go into the bottle, play around with the gradient. Let's turn this up a bit so we get a bit more blue. Let's place all of this in its own collection. So let's go to the bottle. Let's select everything from the bottle. All right, let's place all of this in its own collection. I'm going to call it Sauvage. And now I'm going to make a new light right over here. And let's place that in its own collection, bottle lighting. And I'm going to open up Lumio, go to the light linking. Let's select the collection. Collection should be the bottle lighting. The target collection should be the Sauvage Dior bottle. Add light linking. And now this, if I increase the power, should only work on the bottle and not on the rocks. And that is the case. So let's go over here, scale this up, RX 90. And let's play around with this until we get something that looks pretty cool. I'm first going to do the bottle cap, something like this. Looks pretty cool. Now let's duplicate that one. It'll be pretty soft. So let's decrease the power by a whole lot, but make sure it has some of these lines. Very low power and a bit more bluish, like this. Then right over here, Aldar RX 90. And now I'm going to take this light that has a light linking collection. I'm going to RZ this, bring it over to this side. And maybe something like this. Could be pretty cool. Let's bring the roughness all the way down. And I want this to be a gradient light actually. I'm actually just going to delete this gradient light. Let's add a gradient light, horizontal. I also like adding a plane so I can see what it looks like from before. So this is the gradient, RC 180. Let's rotate it towards the glass. And we're going to increase the height. Looks pretty cool. It can be blue though. Let's go over here, let's make it blue. And now let's add the final lighting pieces. So an area lights right here with a bit more brightness around this edge. Let's duplicate this, Aldar RY90, RC180. And I guess it could be moved backwards just a little bit to give it this slight rim light maybe on the side, you know. And finally, let's maybe place a light right behind it to shine some light through the glass. Yeah, that makes a difference. And this maybe needs some more lighting as well. So let's aim a light at the rocks. And let's make sure it only works on the rocks. So I'm going to make a new collection, rocks lighting. And the rocks should be rocks. Let's go into light linking. I'm going to select rocks lighting. And rocks, add light linking. There you go. Looks pretty cool. Perhaps it should be a harsh light. Something like this, and then less strong. Alright, that looks pretty cool. Maybe to fill in some shadows, I'm going to place a bigger one right there. All right, so right now let's add the final product, and then we're going over some techniques in order to make this a little bit better. And that will be the final part. So I'm going to first add a curve path right over here. Let's turn on the overlay so we can actually see what we're doing. And well, let's use this with the proportional editing. G and Z, rotate it. And let's go over into the geometry and let's actually give it geometry. Extrude, and then we will have this type of plane, which is nice. And no bevel, we are fine with the bevels. So I'm going to bring this outwards and it should curl somewhat around this bottle, something like this, maybe like so. I'm going to press E, that's great. So now we can move this a bit more towards that side, like this. That looks pretty cool. So let's turn this into a mesh. Let's select it, convert to mesh. Now let's add a solidify. Now it's got a bit more thickness. Control 1 to add a subdivision surface modifier. And now we get a pretty cool looking whatever the hell it is. We should add Dior to that, and it's blue. So we already have the image which says Dior. So let's take that. We should probably UV unwrap this. UV unwrap, angle based. And this is only part of it. We want the Dior to be white. I'm actually going to use it as a mask. So let's bring in a new principled BSDF, which is going to have this type of blue. So I'm going to already select it, a pretty dark bluish tone. Select both of these principled BSDFs, Control 0, plug in this image into the vector of the mix shader and unwrap it, unwrap angle based. Let's go to the UV editor and see what it looks like. So it looks like this, and it should be better if it's straight. So I'm going to unwrap it with minimum stretch. And can we now see Dior? We can, as x-1. Now let's add a noise texture, Control T, object in the vector, color ramp, vector into the vector, and let's see what it looks like. It's way too big, so maybe we can set it to 1, scale of 1. Increase the black area just a little bit and make it less black because we don't want it to be entirely reflective, just a little bit. Roughness into the roughness of this blue tone, and now we get a bit more variation in the way this looks. I think it can be brought down on the white one as well. Just a little bit. So now in order to finish this render, all we have to do is go into DaVinci Resolve and make some adjustments. So I'll be right back with you in DaVinci Resolve in order to finish this image. So right now I'm in the color page of DaVinci Resolve and I've got a render right here. I see a couple of things that I might want to change. So I'm going to bring in a film look creator. I'm going to drag it on here and immediately you will see that the entire render changes. First of all, right here under presets, we're going to make this cinematic. And immediately you can see that it becomes more cinematic. Now, I'm going to set this to Rochester because I think it gives a better blue ratio in the entire shot. I will increase the exposure by a bit to make sure that it seems like an actual camera because sometimes things are a bit overexposed and I think that's totally fine in certain cases. And I'm also going into the halation, turn it off, bloom, turn it off. Now we got rid of this problem right here, and under film gate I'm going to bring this down in order to not obscure the entire render too much. So now we have this, so this is the before, this is the after. We already have a pretty cool looking render, and I'm going to press on Alt S to bring in a new node. And I will make this node a bit more blue in the gamma, and the gamma is basically like the midtones. So I'm going to bring this down. By the way, I'm in this tab right over here, color wheels, and then click on the color wheels, and I'm going to make it a bit more blue, and as you can see that makes the render just a little bit better. I'm going to press Alt S once again, and I might want to play around with the darkness and the light values right here, so bring down the midtones, maybe bring up the highlights, and this is starting to look pretty cool. But I think in the Film Look Creator node that we got right here, the grain might be a bit too strong, as you can see. So let's disable it and enable it. It does add to the render, so I don't think it's that annoying. I'm just simply going to bring the amount down by a little bit. And then I'm heading over into the Fusion tab in order to add some more lens distortion and stuff like that. So let's go over there. All right, so right now we have our image, and I'm going to turn this off for a second. Maybe make it a bit bigger for y'all to see. I'm going to bring in a lens distortion node, not a lens distort, but a distortion. And then I will go into the inspector and I will decrease the amount by bringing this upwards. And maybe something like this. And you see a slight difference which emulates a certain camera effect. Then I'm going to bring in a transform node right over there and scale it up so we still get all of our image instead of it being removed. But first, before the lens distortion node, I will bring in a prism blur and I will turn the aberration strength all the way up, the blur strength all the way down, and the aberration distance is what we want to play around with in order to get some chromatic aberration around these edges. And now we've got some prism blur, and this changes the image some more. We get some cool looking edge effects right here, which a lot of cameras do. You can probably see it on me right now, and I often have that when I cut myself out for a thumbnail. So this is an effect that you might want to emulate. And then we got the lens distortion, the transform node, and for now I'm just going to leave it like this. So this is our before and this is the after. So I hope you learned a lot in this tutorial in order to create a product image like this in a pretty special environment. If you want to support me as a creator as well as support yourself, then I highly recommend checking out the first link in the description, which is going to be the King of Light bundle pack. And if you want to know how to make this cool product visualization render, or you want to have a step-by-step guide on how to do this, then I highly recommend checking out one of those two videos next.